What is up, you guys? Welcome to Illumination Lab. My name is Justin, and welcome to another episode of Resculpted. In this series, we'll take a scene or an image and recreate it within Cinema4D and Redshift. In this episode, we'll be finishing up the dining room scene by adding in some lights, color, and really honing in on some minor details. I'm excited for this one. This is going to be a fun one today, so without further delay, let's get into it. Alright, so jumping back into our scene here, I'm just going to move our camera and get back into perspective. So let me just zoom out a little bit. Okay, so first we are going to bring in some lights. So I'm just going to bring in a portal light and just kind of fix this to the window here. And so really with this, we already established some of our lighting. However, with this portal light, we'll be able to pump in a little bit more light than before. So we'll just kind of fit this right to the window here. And then let's just crank this up to about 2. Cool. And then what I'll do is I'm just going to copy and paste that same portal light, and then I'm just going to rotate this. And then we're just going to slide this on back. And this is going to be kind of near the front of the scene. So we're kind of pushing in a little bit more light within the foreground of the scene here. So I'm just going to kind of fix this near the bottom here and then just kind of expand it out, and right about there would be fine. And then I'm just going to turn that off. So next up, what we have to do is kind of start with our materials here. So I think what we'll do is actually just start with this carpet here. So what I'm going to do is go over to Redshift, and we are going to pick out this material here. And then I'm just going to go grab a texture here, and we're just going to plug that in here. So, all right, so I found this texture, which is probably the most similar to our reference here. So I'll just kind of put that on top of our rug here. And then we will adjust our UV length to make sure that this rug is just kind of perfectly fit on our cube there. Then I'm gonna just crank this up to 100, and then just a little bit more, and then just kind of make some minor changes here. Cool, so maybe about here. Yeah, so that's looking good as far as fitting on there. However, it is rather flat, so actually I do have a better idea. I'm just going to hop into Grayscale Gorilla, and we're just going to maybe pull in one of these carpets here, and then we'll change that texture image just so we actually have kind of what we're looking for as far as that pattern goes, but we really get the benefits of the rest of the setup. What's nice is we'll throw in a Redshift tag, and that will help kind of pump in the displacement. So I'm just going to turn all of these on, and because of this, it did kind of turn into a circle here. So we're actually just going to go in and just crank up our segments, and that looks a lot better there. So I'm just going to kind of place this back on the ground. And just a similar process here, I'm just going to go into the material and really kind of change the UV length and just kind of stretch it out so it's kind of fitting this whole cube here. So So that looks a lot better, especially since we don't have that glossiness that was from our previous material. So that looks a lot more like an actual rug there. So pretty good there. And it's also a pretty cool feature that we can kind of go in and tweak some of this. So kind of depending on what you're working with, you can always kind of go in and adjust it need be. So what we'll do is we'll hop into Grayscale Gorilla again, and we'll bring in a lot more materials here. All right, so we do need a few different warm tones, and we also need some wood as well too. So what we'll do is just kind of grab some of these oranges here, and then some of the wood as well too, and we'll just kind of plug those in and see what works. And usually what I do as well too is I try to find a few good ones just so I can kind of plug it in, see if it really works with the material that I'm going for. And then if not, I have another one that is somewhat similar that we can always bounce to. But usually for a lot of these different projects, I try to plug in as much materials as possible and then just kind of go from there. So all right, so hopping over to our wood section. So there is a ton of different wood here. So if you do look at the reference, we do have some wood materials, and so we do have this nice lighter wood on the ground, and of course our table is a nice wood texture as well too, so we definitely need to bring that in. So I'm going to do this oak one here and see how that one is, and I'm just going to send that over. And then I'm just going to do this hickory one as well. And then for our floor, maybe this red oak would be good. So I'm just going to download that and send that over. And then what we'll do is we'll type in steel, and we do kind of need more of a darker tone just for the window and then also the door as well too. So we'll bring in some of that. We can even type in black here and try to see if we can find something similar here to our reference. Let's see here. Maybe something like this would work, a painted wood. Let's try that one. Cool. So let's just start out with this and kind of see how this goes here. So I'm just going to exit out. So first I'm going to start with this orange, and let's see. Oh yeah, so that is pretty nice here. That's pretty spot on to our reference there. So we did a pretty good job with that one. And then what I'm going to do is actually turn on our ceiling here and put our orange on the ceiling, and then just kind of turn that back off. And then I'm just going to zoom in here, and then we'll apply some of this painted wood onto our windowsill. And then same with this bottom portion as well. And then this one right in the middle, and then at the top as well too. So cool. And then next up, I'm just going to adjust our vase here. And just zoom out a bit, and then we'll apply the floor. However, the tiles are a little too big, so we'll just change that down to 50% each, and that actually looks quite nice there. And then we will apply this hickory to our table, and what we'll do is just kind of kick that down to 50%. And actually, let's actually move this back to 100, but what we're going to do is just kind of flip this, just because in our reference we do have a lot of the wood kind of working more vertically versus horizontally. So we're just going to kind of turn that real quick just to make sure that that is very similar there. Cool. So we have some of our foundational pieces set here, looking pretty good so far. I'm just going to go into the Redshift library here and maybe find some sort of little table here, just because we do have that table in the back corner. I am using that cube as a placeholder for now, but let's see if we can find something here that kind of works for what we're trying to do. All right, so let's maybe do this one here. Definitely not the right color, but that is okay. We can always change that. Let me just rotate this just so we can kind of see what that's looking like. Actually, let's try something else. Maybe this would be a little bit better here. So let me kind of move this back to that area. And then just kind of rotate this and make sure that it's lining up properly. And then just kind of slide this back here. And then I'm just going to kind of increase the size, and always have to remember to save just in case it crashes here. So I'm just going to delete our cube and just increase that. Cool. And I'm just kind of fixing this to make sure it's not running into the wall too much. And I'm just looking at the reference here just to make sure that it is somewhat proportionate here. And then our vase is now kind of floating, so we're just going to adjust our vase there and then just kind of make sure that it's sitting on top there. So cool, perfect. And then also too, I do kind of notice this weird highlight on the top right here. So I'm just going to turn on our portal light and maybe push this back. There we go. That's a little bit better. And then I'm just going to kind of expand that so it's kind of fitting the entire window. Cool. So next up, I'm just going to put this orange on a lot of our chairs here. And so even though it is somewhat of a rough texture, we'll just kind of use this as a placeholder, and we'll just kind of see how we're feeling near the end of this. What I don't like about it is it looks very rough, where in our reference, obviously in our reference, it's different types of chairs. Our reference is a little bit more of a softer chair here, where this one is obviously a little bit different, a little bit more of a rougher chair here. So that may kind of make it look a little off here. So I'm just going to kind of sit this orange here, and we'll just kind of figure out how we feel about that a little bit later. So all right, so jumping back into our Redshift library here, we do need to find some sort of lights or some sort of lamp here. So again, if we're looking at our reference, we do have actually something similar to this here. So let me just pull this in. And yeah, that's kind of the same overall shape. Of course, we'll kind of change the size and the color here, but that is kind of similar to what we're looking at. And then I'm just going to kind of adjust that size. And then let me just kind of fix my camera here. And then we're just going to kind of bring that down to maybe about there. Just kind of bring this over a bit. Yeah, maybe about there. And then we do need to take that off. Cool. So what we'll do is we'll copy and paste a few of these and really just kind of line it up and make sure that we have this in the right position here. So we do have a second light, maybe about here. maybe up a little bit as well. And then we'll bring in a third one and bring this back to maybe about there. And just kind of move that a little bit and bring that up. And then bring this one up a little bit. Cool. So next up, I'm just going to hop into Grayscale Gorilla. Let's type in orange and let's see if we can find another orange, possibly for our light here. I think this orange plastic would actually do quite nice. So let's send this over and we'll check out how that looks. Let's see here. Any other options? Nope, I think that should be fine there. So let's see. Put this on top. Let me just kind of move that over. Cool. Yeah, so that definitely works. It's around the same color there. So we'll just apply that to all of our lights here. Cool. So it seems to be coming along quite well. Just kind of looking here, you know, now that I'm looking at it, what we can actually do is take this and let's actually apply this to the windowsill. I don't know if it's the actual texture of the material or if it's the color, but I think that kind of represents our reference a little bit better there, even though it's kind of a not necessarily a black color here. I think this kind of works for what we're doing. It may actually be an actual black color, but I think the way the light is hitting it, it really kind of lightens it up a little bit more. So we will maybe stick with that and just kind of see how that goes, but I think I like that a little bit better. All right, so next up, we are going to be working on the chairs. So we're just going to take this black here and just apply it to the bottom. And then I'll actually open up the chair knoll here and we'll just put this color on every single one here. Just because in the reference, actually all of this is completely a more of a black or just dark color in general. So we'll actually do that for all of these here real quick. Cool. So that is done so far. Again, we can always go back and just kind of check on it, or just alter it in general, but I think that is good for now. Next up, we'll hop back into Grayscale and we will go into our model section and we will type in door, and we're just going to kind of bring in this door asset. Now, this is a little bit different versus our reference here, so we will have to kind of play around with it and probably delete a good portion of it, but this is going to give us, again, more of that general idea, and then we can kind of really break it down as far as like going into detail. So let me just kind of adjust this to this wall here. So two really big things we need to address here first is we just need to make sure this is lined up properly. We need to kind of really nail down the proportion of this door just to make sure that everything else kind of fits to scale. Just because if you have some sort of asset or item that is just completely off and it's taking up most of your composition, it's just going to make the overall look kind of off in general. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to delete a lot of this here and just kind of get rid of the handle in general. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to select a few of these here and we're just going to kind of delete these. And then if you're looking at the reference as well, these windows here are a little bit larger than what we have here. So I'm probably going to start somewhere around here and then just kind of start deleting a lot of these. And really we're just trying to make space for some of those little windows there, just so we can kind of see the kitchen on the other side here. So I'm just going to take a quick second here and just kind of highlight all of these and then just go ahead and delete them. So do the same thing for the other side here. And then I'll delete all of these edges here to make sure that it is nice and clean. Cool, so that is looking pretty good. Maybe I'll just kind of delete these as well. Cool, so that looks pretty darn good, very similar to our reference there, so that is looking nice. And then I'm just going to reset our asset here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in a bool and then really just essentially cut a hole into this wall here. And then what I'm going to do is just copy and paste this cube here and just kind of shrink this down. And then what I'll do is just use this cube and we'll just kind of cut that chunk out of the wall here using that bool. So I'm just going to kind of just try to make it the same size as this door here. And we'll just plug that into our bool. And then you can see we did not delete most of that back part there, so we can always kind of go back in and delete those. So let's actually do that now. I'm just going to kind of zoom in here and we're just going to go ahead and delete most of this. And again, just kind of clean up the sides here. And then we'll do this on the other side as well too. Cool, so that is looking good. Now we can completely see the other side of that wall, so that is good there. Cool, so what I'm going to do is just kind of zoom out here, and then what I'm going to do is actually fix this wall here. So I'm just going to turn it back on and kind of adjust that there. Really with this, I'm just trying to kind of control the lighting here. So all right, so what I'm going to do is just copy and paste, shrink this down, and then I'm just going to kind of create a wall on this outside here. And again, that's more to just kind of reduce the lighting, just to make sure that there is nothing kind of bleeding in from the outside there. All right, so next up, we are going to bring in a light, And with this light, I'm going to set it up outside of this door, and I'm just going to try to find some sort of similar kitchen here that we could plug into our lights, just so we can kind of create the effect that there is a kitchen there without having to actually build it ourselves here. So I'm just going to kind of line this up to our door and just kind of stretch that out and kind of bring it forward. And then what I'll do off screen is just find something similar here and we'll plug this in. And then I did find this one, and this one is probably the closest to our reference here. So I'm just going to kind of fix the perspective, maybe kind of reduce down the intensity here, just so it seems a little bit darker in there. That darker color and the cabinets kind of go well, especially with kind of offsetting the orange here, or actually even just complementing the orange within our scene here. So I like that quite a bit, but we just need to get the right perspective. Yeah, maybe about there would be good. And then we'll go down to our wood texture again, and we'll just kind of place that on the door, just because it seems quite similar to what is going on as far as like the window goes. So let's just set that there. And then I'll do the same thing for this side wall here. And I'm just kind of seeing what this looks like in the render view. And sometimes I'll do this just to kind of see what my reference is looking like versus what is actually going on here. I think we are okay so far. So let's hop back into Grayscale Gorilla and let's see if we can try to find something here. Some sort of ceramic color here. Let's do this one here, see how this one is. And we'll just go ahead and connect that and send that over. Cool. So I'm just going to take that ceramic and put that in the base in the back, and then take this lighter one and put this one up front. All right, cool. So we have done quite a bit so far. I'm just going to give it a quick save, and then next we're just going to hop into our Redshift library, and there are a ton of really cool orange plants here. Of course, it's not too similar to our reference here, but I think if we can kind of get a general idea, that is definitely better than nothing here. So I'm just going to give it a quick save and just kind of move my camera out and just reduce it down. Then I'll just move this over to where the base is, kind of just place it inside here. And then I'm just going to kind of check out our perspective, kind of bring that down and rotate this. And I'm just trying to see what the best angle is here. Actually, I'm just going to shrink this down even more, and we'll just readjust it here. And I'll hop back into our Redshift camera. And again, just kind of adjust it. Yeah, I think that will be good. And then we can type in orange just to see if we're kind of missing anything here. So I think for this middle area, I think that is probably the best. And then we'll bring in some roses here for that back corner. So I'll just kind of bring this up and take this to the back area here. And we'll just kind of place it right there. And then I'll rotate this just slightly and kind of bring this down. And then we're just going to kind of make this a little bit larger here. Cool. So I'll zoom out here, and then I'll just zoom out again here, give it a quick save. Next up, what I'm going to do is just kind of bring in a area light, and our scene is rather dark here, so I'm just going to kind of adjust this near the back side over here, just to make sure that I'm bringing enough light to the scene here, but not getting too crazy, just because most of this foreground is pretty light here, but there are some more of our like darker shadows that I still kind of want to be there. So, and then next up, I'm just going to go ahead and place our wood here. Cool. So that was simple enough there. So while we're working on this, what I'll actually do is just go in and turn off our flowers here, just so our machine is a little bit more responsive here. And then what we're going to do is just kind of go in and do some minor tweaks here. So I'm just going to kind of pull this to the left a little bit and just kind of adjust this. Same thing with this top here. Just kind of widen this out a bit. And then I'm just going to take this, copy and paste. And I'm just going to kind of move this up a little bit and kind of shrink this down. Kind of move this off to the side here. And then I'll just kind of rotate my perspective here and kind of push this out a little bit more. And then we'll actually turn off this wall just so we can kind of see a little bit better. And again, I'm just going to copy and paste. We'll rotate this about 90 degrees here, and we'll just kind of shrink this down and just take this up a little bit. Kind of adjust it here. And then actually what I'll do is just kind of bring this down instead, and we'll kind of adjust this near the bottom here just to kind of create more of that bottom seal. And then what I'll do is just copy and paste the same one and just kind of bring this up. And then we don't have to kind of fit this all the way, just because with our perspective we don't really see this other side here, so just kind of leaving it there would be fine. Cool. And then what I'm going to do is just kind of take this same window seal here, and we're just going to kind of move this cube over. I'm just going to shrink this down here and kind of fix it to the top area, and just kind of make sure that we have it here kind of sitting on top correctly. Going to copy and paste, and then I'm just going to rotate that. And I'm just going to put this on the outside here, kind of finish up with the trimming of this door here, and just kind of fit that right into place. Alright, so next I'm just going to copy and paste, rotate this again, and kind of bring this over and down, turn on fillet. And I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here just so we can kind of see what we're doing. And I'm just going to put that right in the middle there. Be about there. Cool. So looking a little bit better here. Next up, just going to hop back into Grayscale Gorilla here. And then I'm just going to type in table. And what I'm going to do is actually bring in this table set here. And I'm just going to delete most of these chairs here. And I'm just going to bring this table up and just make sure that is a little bit bigger here. I'm just going to delete that top half here. And really with this, we're kind of just interested in this frame and the legs pretty much. So I'm just going to rotate this and make sure that it is measuring up just right. And we'll just kind of fix that right there. Maybe about there. Kind of decrease that a little bit. And I'm just going to bring that table down a little bit. Of course, since we brought the table down, we will need to adjust this here just to make sure it's actually sitting down on the table. And same thing here as well too. I'm gonna zoom out. And then we're just going to apply that steel texture here to both the bottom portion and to the legs. Cool. So it seems to be coming along quite well here. We are kind of near the end here, but let's actually just kind of take a quick look here. All right, so I'm just going to take this cube and remove the material. And then I'm just going to kind of expand this here. And then I'm just going to copy and paste and bring in another one and just kind of bring down that size to about there. And we're just going to grab a null and we're just going to call that null window. And then same with this one, I'm just going to copy and paste and just kind of bring this down and just kind of fit this to the door. So what we'll do is we'll jump into our Redshift library and we will find a nice glass for us. Maybe something like this here. And then what we'll do is just drop this onto our null and that will be our glass there. So let's pull up our Redshift render view here. And just turn that on and hop into perspective. And immediately there, you could kind of see what we're looking at. So it is looking quite nice. However, it does seem a little empty here. So there is some stuff we can adjust here. Let's just adjust this color here. And then I'm just going to turn on the flowers. And then I'm just going to adjust these to about 25% here. Cool. So that looks pretty good here. I think that pretty much wraps up this project here. I probably will make some minor changes, but other than that, that is pretty much what we're looking at. I'm just going to go ahead and kind of play with this a little bit more off camera here and go ahead and render it out. I probably won't do too many changes, but that's probably the final representation of our render. So let's actually hop into the wrap up section and just kind of finish this thing off. All right, so hopping into our wrap up section, we do have these two here. So this was my first render here, and then this is our initial picture. So big thing right off the bat is details. So really with this, it looks like I mainly just kind of focus on more big picture versus some of the minor details. And so right off the bat, what's kind of sticking out to me is just some of the panels over here on the door, and then of course, you do have some fruit as well too within that bowl here. And then most of that plant here is just kind of taking up most of the space on this table here, where when we look at the render, we obviously see a smaller plant and then not so much of the plant in the background either. Also, what I'm looking at is the glossiness of the lights here really isn't the same sort of color or even just kind of texture in general. It looks a little bit more almost like a copper or some sort of like rose color here, and where we kind of did more of a muted orange here. I will say during this process, as I was getting to the ends, my machine was kind of slowing down, so I was a little bit nervous about rendering this out to see if I can actually have enough VRAM to render this whole thing out. But again, I think I got the general idea. Of course, you know, we have all of the different nice orange tones here. You have kind of the kitchen area, and then I think I did a pretty good job representing the same type of carpet. But again, our render here looks quite flat, where the actual real image here has a lot of depth to it. So especially at the bottom or even the right side, you have a lot of light here, and then on the left side we do see a lot more darks. And then with this initial render, you kind of just see kind of a flat area here. I did try to throw in that light off to the right here, but it looks like we couldn't push enough in. And then especially in this column area, this is just kind of a flat area, and you can kind of tell that these are two separate parts here. So you can see this division here quite a bit. So if I were to go back in, I would definitely spend a few hours just kind of honing in more of those details, trying to make sure that we get the lighting a little bit better here, and then we really kind of focus more on those details, as I said before. So I think, again, the biggest thing is just making sure that I kind of pay attention to the actual details that are in the image versus just trying to cover the full picture here. So, but other than that, I had a lot of fun with this one. I wish I kind of looked into some better chairs. The chairs don't look super realistic, especially with how they kind of turned out as well. Our chairs look kind of rough and gritty, where again, these are a little bit more soft and has kind of a nicer texture to it. So a lot of things to kind of work on here, but like I said, we kind of got the overall general vibe here. But definitely let me know what you guys think. Hopefully you guys learned something or you enjoyed the process here. I think next time I really want to try to make sure that this is a little bit more realistic. Going into the future here, I'm gonna try and plan out a few different videos here, so we're definitely gonna continue with our Resculpted series and then maybe kind of plug in something new as well too. But yeah, that was pretty much it for this one. Again, let me know what you guys think. You guys have a good rest of your day, and I'll see you on the next one.